the group of commissioners that we have looking to come on board.
Yeah.
I really hope to have a group of people that we all have a common goal. We all know what we need to do. As time goes on, everybody's going to listen to everybody else, and they're all going to come up with the same ideas. And the key is having the tools and the knowledge and the stamina to continue to work toward that goal. We need to create a environment where the commission brings together everybody in order to accomplish the things that are most needed for the city of Millville. There is no question about it. The time for nitpicking and the time for he said, she said, or complaints about things that happened in the past or why, it needs to be over with. It's also my thinking that we've had people that have had a mindset that's mindset of the past. They've observed people that they were close to who came on board and worked their way up, became a commissioner. They did their stint there, didn't really do a lot for the city. The city continued to have a somewhat of a downturn ever since the major employer in the city, Wheaton, started to go out of business. Glass went out, and with it took a lot of the jobs and so forth. And people coming in that time, which is when I was young, they really didn't have a plan or a focus or whatever. And they moved on. They became county commissioner. A couple of them run for senator. And then they go to other jobs. And then people say, "Oh, well, that's a stepping stone," and they run and they come in and they use the city politics as a training ground. And I don't care about city politics. I'm not training for anything. I'm there to do for the city. And there are some people that are going to revisit, or they're going to jump into the race, and they're going to have that same mentality. And one of my firm beliefs is that you can't keep making the same mistake over and over and over again. You can't not learn from the mistakes of the people that came before you. And if you plan on doing that, just stay home. Don't even try to, get in the race, because we need somebody who's going to be forward thinking, that's going to get out there, that's going to take care of problems, that's going to overcome a lot of the bad things that are going on in the city right now, and overcome the old mentality of we need to do this, and this didn't work, we need to throw some more money at it to see if we got to revitalize this. We have to build something else. And revitalization of some of the fluff and some of the things that people want that aren't of primary importance right now, they'll come. You have to take care of the big problems, or you will never get to the end point.
Now
I'm a firm believer.
Sounds like a good transition point. But before we do, is there anything else about your background you quickly want to mention before we head into the next section?
It's kind of like, where do I fit this in? I'm persevering. I've overcome on projects, on cleanups, things at the jail. I've overcome adversity. I've overcome situations. I've moved fast on my feet. I've been given awards for different things that I accomplished. I'm tenacious. I see an end point, and I focus, and I try to get there. And when you're trying to clean up a hazardous waste site that has been sitting dormant for years and years and years, and then it's thrown in your lap, and now you're the case manager, and you're expected to do the usual things that you do, and then you see an opening, and I'm thinking of Rollins Environmental Services. I had an opening that allowed me to circumvent so much red tape and so much BS that I went to EPA and I said, hey, we're going to do this.
Well,
and they're like...
Since you're already setting that story up, can you go back to the beginning and just explain for the audience, people who don't already know that story, like what happened, how it developed, all that kind of stuff?
I was made a case manager of a place that blew up back in the early 90s and had a big fire in the 80s also, but people were killed there, and contamination went to the ground, and it ultimately went...
And this was part of your DEP work?
Yes.
Okay.
And to make a long story short, it was a contaminated site at the top of the list, not the tippy top, but one of the top cleanup places that needed to be cleaned up in the state. And it floundered for years, and going through planning and this and that and more planning, and then a revision, and then more planning, and then a revision of the plan to do, and I was like, got to the point, enough is enough. I don't want to read this whole thing again. It was like volumes of stuff. I'm like, we've done enough groundwork. The groundwork's here. Let's do something and get it done. And EPA made a rule where you could remediate material, and if it was safe to human health and the environment, you could basically keep it on site and create engineering controls that would stabilize the material so it wouldn't leach out and it wouldn't create other problems with groundwater and so forth. And you could basically make a cap and a landfill out of the material in question, because sometimes there's just never enough money and it doesn't make sense to take something that's contaminated and put somewhere else where it's contaminated. It's like, why would you do it?
So how did you cut through everything and eventually get it done?
And this law came out, and it was for corrective action management units, and it was new and it was innovative, and I said, we're going to do that. And EPA goes, really? And I said, yeah. I said, our standards are done, we know what we have to do, and Rollins knows what they have to do, so let's have a big meeting, get everybody in, and we're going to tell them to do it, and they're going to agree. I already know that. I knew that before I came to you, because I talked to them, and they said, yeah, absolutely. And they came in, and they knew what they had to do. They were prepared to do the work. They set it all up, and I laid the groundwork with EPA. I had people come out of woodwork, including my boss, say, you're not going to do that. We had a plan. I'm like, plans change. And she was not happy, and we changed the plan, and I had wetlands come out, and they said, that's valuable wetlands. You can't dig that up. I said, it's valuable wetlands. It's a hazardous waste site. It's on Superfund list, and we're going to dig it up, and we're going to mix it with things to stabilize it, and then we're going to put it in a triple line landfill with a cover, and then we're going to remediate that area, and it'll be clean, and then we're going to allow nature and with a little help from some planting and some other things to take its course. But I'm going to tell you, the world's largest excavator is going to come and dig up that wetlands, and they're going to mix it with concrete and some other things. We're going to put it into this landfill on site that's going to be used essentially to cap other areas and become a place where Rollins can do whatever they see fit, because essentially it'll have almost like a parking lot. And that's what happened. And I had everybody mad, but I persevered.
Did it succeed at the end?
It succeeded. And the beautiful thing right now is that perseverance and that, hard-headedness of me, and, I had the cooperation from EPA and other groups, that when it finally got done, it's now a good part of the property that was the former hazardous waste incinerator site is now got a 1 million square foot warehouse out front. We have Mount McGinty in the back that is a solid and good remedy that is protective of human health and the environment. It took a problem out of nature, and it allowed us to revitalize that area and bring it back and restore it to wetlands. And then the site in other parts, you don't have the pollution to groundwater and additional pollution to surface water, and the remedy, which is the corrective action management unit, landfill, whatever you call it, is now covered with solar. So the solar kind of diverts water off of the landfill itself, even, which has got a triple liner and everything, but it's covered 6-point-some acres of it with solar panels that are providing electric, and it's on property I like to think of as brownfields that is put back to good use instead of putting solar panels on farmland or former forest where you're going to clear out and put a solar farm. We need to look at more places like this and take places that are remediated or cleaned up to an industrial standard and use those for projects like solar or even a wind farm if it's in the right place, or a warehouse.
So this is sounding like a really good example of a long delayed project, something that should have been taken care of long before you had your idea, but then you figured out your angle, presented it to all the right people, got the people in the room to try and negotiate some type of compromise or idea to move forward. And despite a lot of pushback, you barreled through and got the project done. And now it's being used for very good purposes. And then hopefully you can use similar ideas moving forward should you get elected to the commissioner board.
And a good part of that, a lot of it had to do with, there was a change in thinking, there was a change in the law. People that I was involved with at EPA, they gave me the heads up because they wanted to see it done too. And I looked into it and I went to my support people. I was the case manager for that site. I also had a geologist who was instrumental in working with me. I'm a geologist. My title was a hazardous site mitigation specialist. I was the cleanup guy. But, anytime I was in the field, I used my geology background to evaluate, assess, think about what have you, and then having that background, I can communicate with other geologists and say, hey, can we do this? And then it went to a risk assessment guy who was an absolute genius, and he thought it was great. And I went to a guy who was specialized in, treatment, and, he thought pozzolanic stabilization, mixing with concrete, fly ash, and some other things that were readily available. It all came together, and it was, I was the guy who put it all together and got it done. And I'm proud of that. And, I have been the little part of big things and big things getting done for other case managers because we work together. I was, in many cases, the eyes and ears of case managers out on sites because they were too busy doing other things. My initial job was to go out and be their eyes and ears in addition to having cases to manage.
Okay, well now.
So it was that's kind of how we worked, and that anytime you can help coordinate and think positively and try to do things to get to an end point and get things done, and you work together, you can accomplish just about anything.
Yeah. Now let's move the conversation more towards the specific race, your vision moving forward, how you would work on the commission.
Absolutely.
And try to help the audience understand what you think some of the top issues are, things that need to be done, and how whatever action plan you would have to help solve some of the current issues going on.
Yeah, my big thrust, and because it's more my specialty, I have a slogan, and it was remediation and redevelopment. And there's contaminated property in Millville that is in need of being revitalized. We have a lot of acres in Wheaton Glass and other spots that we could do that same brownfields kind of thing that we did at Rollins and put those pieces of property back on the tax rolls.
Just to clarify for the audience, what is the brownfield?
Brownfields is when you have contaminated property that's cleaned up to a standard that is okay for, say, an industrial use, or a use where the public is not going to come in contact with what little contamination's left, or contamination that doesn't have a pathway to get to them or to other things in nature, and you use those little bit dirty properties and you continue to use them as industrial sites.
Right.
You're not going to put a daycare center there. You're not going to build a school on top of it. You don't want kids playing in the dirt, even though there's an engineering control. You still don't want to have, distance is good. You want to stay away from.
So it's basically you're taking some of the properties or areas in Millville that are contaminated and then bringing them up to a brownfield-ready state, so that some of which
the remediation is already completed, and some is ongoing. Yet the operation of a industrial, whether it be warehousing, whether it be a marijuana growing facility, whether it be storage, or you're fixing something in those spaces, you're not going to come in contact with groundwater that's contaminated 20 some feet in the ground.
Sure.
So and you're not going to drink the water on site because we have city water, and that's right. All tested and so forth. So that groundwater pump and treat can keep working underneath your feet without affecting you as, you know, a person on that site. It's not going to hurt your health or whatever, and you know, it's a win-win for everybody.
So then, what areas would you be looking at, and how would you get that process started?
The process is, like I said, the process is complete. It's a matter of administrative work to get done, and then for a push to find a person who could be a tenant. It could be a property owner that's going to sell the property and get someone in there that needs a piece of property that can start a business and thrive there. It's you know, everybody knows about Wheaton's. Everybody drives by and they see piles of concrete and they see a lot of things. We need to streamline what they need to have done to clean that up, make it so that they can go on with their vision of what they want to do there, and we need to make it easier and remove some of the impediments that have been thrown in their way because of tensions, you know, and different ideas and who thinks they should do what and this, that, and the other. So that let's just get it done, and then let's get them so that they can either sell it and bring somebody in and do a really good project there, or you know, they could do it themselves. I mean, they do have some ideas, and you know, whatever I could do to facilitate that, and you know, I've already put them in touch with the people at the DEP, with specialists that do brownfields, with specialists that, you know, are in air pollution control. I've, you know, some groundwater issue. You know, I'm in the beginning stages of putting them in touch with people that can decide whether or not they can do a project that may or may not impact not only groundwater contamination on their site, but on sites that are in the area. There's a regional groundwater contamination problem there, and I got my hands in all of it. And
so yeah, you're already trying to help facilitate it, and being on the commissioner board would probably just make it easier for you to facilitate it even more.
You know, I hope so. And the I think that if we can get economic development in those areas, it's going to be key to fund improvements in other areas. Now, we talked about security, and I think all this goes hand in hand. And improving security for the residents and improving working conditions for police and first responders is key. Yeah. We have to have better cooperation, coordination there also. It's my understanding that we do have funding in place for additional police. And we do have, they've been given tools that are excellent tools to help them do their job easier. And I'm not privy to a lot of that because, frankly, you don't walk into the police station, start looking around and asking in their busy day, hey, how are you doing this, or why are you doing this, or who's doing what, and whatever. But when you're the director of public safety, you're going to need to be responsible for that, and you're going to need to be able to work with the cops, and you're going to be able to work with the supervisors, and you're going to tie that into the EMTs and all the other people that all need to work together, because when you have an accident, who goes out? They all go out together. They all look out for each other's backs. They all help each other to be protective of the people in the city. Mm-hmm. You know, we had a shooting. The cops were there from the city of Millville. Our police officers, I say cops, but, you know, they deserve, a better title than the cops. They're officers. They're professionals. Their supervisors are there. We had county sheriffs that came to aid us. We had the cooperation of people from Bridgeton and Vineland's departments, some of whom I couldn't identify. They were, detectives and what have you, and unmarks. We had at least 5 SUVs around from Vineland's police department. I could pick them out easy. Our county prosecutor's office had detectives there, and a photographer, and different people that all came together in that horrible shooting, and they gathered info quickly, efficiently. They allayed some of the fears of the people, which, people have fear in Millville. Mm-hmm. There were people nearby to that, near and dear to me, that were within lethal range of guns going off. Yep. And that is unacceptable, and it cannot continue to happen. And we need somebody with some backbone that is going to be the guy to go after that. And I think there's people running that have that backbone. And I'm not endorsing. I'm not running with anybody, but at some point, I'm going to pick and choose who I'm going to endorse, and say, hey, I can do this, you can do that, and they can do this. And hopefully, it seems like we could all work together toward the common goal that we all know that we want. We all kind of have the same ideas, and, let's get it done, and do it. And, having additional funds to have things like, the walking patrol. A lot of people are asking about walking patrol. Yeah, great. And that's, it's nice to have officer friendly on the street who's seen by children and kids and by nefarious characters who are going to kind of go the other way when they got somebody that's out there that looks like he's going to do the job if they decide to act up. Nothing like when we were kids. What do you want to be when you grow up? Well, I want to be a fireman. Oh, I want to be a policeman. You know why? Because there was some smiling guy you saw that would walk up to you, and he looked like, he meant business, and he was just nice, and he, pat you on the head or pick you up or, show you his car or his fire truck or whatever, and that got kids pumped up, and they had respect for those people. That isn't the case anymore, but we need to have people like that instill a feeling of safety and a feeling of community so that we can drive out the negative element. And I mean, we need to drive them out. And I, without going into specifics that, observations. When the shooting happened, I was out there. I drove around. I looked at everything that was going on in the area. Funny, I didn't see anybody else that I knew, and I'm not going to say, I didn't see any other commissioner candidates, or, I didn't see this one or that one, but I didn't see anybody but my
I thought about going
my
out there,
buddy. I saw him, and he thinks a lot like I do, and we do what we do. But I got out of my truck and I walked up and I thanked the violent cops and officers, and they're like, "Who are you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just a guy." And I'm like, I'm a candidate for the city of Millville, and I said, "I really appreciate you guys being out here." He goes, "You're the only one that ever came up and thanked me. I really appreciate it." And I said, "Well, I know I've been in your shoes when I was a lieutenant over to prison. Sometimes it's nice to hear a good thing, and you guys deserve it." And they were really happy, so that was a good thing. With the police department.
So you said there was funding, right?
Yes, there is funding available to hire additional police officers. Yes.
Is it like a recruitment problem?
It's a recruitment problem.
And
yes.
How would you help with that?
I think that in having a sense of community image needing to get improved, which is number 3 on my list.
Yeah.
I just slid to that paper. Our city image is horrible right now. And, when I was on the state championship football team with a lot of other really good athletes, not one of the best ones, that's for sure. We had some really great people. We had people with a lot of pride, and we always have. Millville is a proud town, and we need to bring that back, and we need to help their image and bring, or make our image shine again, not be tarnished by crime and so forth. Some of the things that I think we could do to, improve our image is, one, we got to remove, rebuild, resell, do whatever we need with derelict properties. They got to go. You need stricter, more aggressive code enforcement, and you need to require the people doing it. It needs to be done. The cleanup, the removal, tearing stuff down needs to go out to bid, not handed to somebody because it's under the diminished amount of, money, or you create an emergency where you wind up paying somebody, $2 million to tear down a building that would have cost you $200,000.
Right.
And I'm not going to bring up specifics, but those are real numbers, folks. So much money was wasted by a knee-jerk reaction by somebody, and people got paid way more than they needed to be paid.
Right.
Can't have that happen. We don't have that kind of dough. That was sitting around left over from a previous commission's hard work and endeavors to save money, and it was gone in an instant. Millville Thunderbolts. We have pride in that name. Millville Thunderbolts were we were the first defense airport during World War II. We trained Thunderbolt pilots, so that's where we got the name for the high school football teams and baseball teams and whatever. And I can't think of a time when, all the way back to World War II, and that I wasn't there, but you hear about the old teams and so forth, and there was so much pride in what they did. They're working class families, other people, their kids played sports, they were competitive, they were proud of what they were doing. They had rivalries. We have the oldest football rivalry in the, one of the oldest in the country, if not the oldest. With Vineland. We've had some phenomenal teams and people that have had great success in our sports program. So that's our kids, that's our youth, that's the future, and we continue to have that. We need to make it better.
So now how would you plan on amplifying that pride? You need encouragement from the school and the teachers and so forth. You need youth programs that can feel like when their kids are, out doing what they're doing, that they feel safer, and that we have some people in the area that, donate. We need to have, more grassroots things to help kids in whatever they want to do, whether it's music, whether it's football, whether it's baseball. We need to help our youth to keep them out of trouble. When they're busy, they're less likely to get in trouble. When they're proud of what they're doing, and when their community is proud of them, and when they're proud of their community, they're going to be an asset at some point when they get older and when they grow up and they do what they do. The best prevention for drugs and crime and nefarious activities, keep them kids busy, knowledgeable. They need to have a sense of self-improvement, and they got to have a good feeling of self-worth and being told, hey, you're really doing good. You're proud of your accomplishments. Now go to Ohio State or go to Lehigh or go to, Notre Dame and get a degree and make yourself even better.
Or take up a trade and become like Super Mason and go build a golf course. I know that guy too, but I can't mention the name. And he has a team of great people that we're all kids that, I grew up with, and they're successful because they're working hard and they're proud of what they do. And we have some excellent people doing excellent things. So, those are the kind of things that are going to make the city look better. It's going to be more inviting for a cop to come to a place where there's not a hell show going on, for lack of the other term that I normally would use. And I think you get the idea of what I'm striving for.
Sure.
The last thing is improving the efficiency of city departments and services to the city of Millville. We need to get people back in our offices, at their desks, handling the day-to-day running of this city efficiently. The operations need to be investigated and improved. Our directors of our city commission need to look at their departments, and they had to eyeball supervise, and those departments and those supervisors in those departments need to be held accountable. That's not there right now. I hear many, many, many complaints. Oh, I called this office, I called that office. I've called 100 times and nobody's ever there.
Don't get me started.
I believe it because I've made those calls myself. And then I've driven up and, sadly, there was nobody there. But I got the answer I wanted because somebody else covered. But, it's just, if you're there, you need to do, if you're employed, you need to do your job. And, enough of the petty stuff that goes on. And I'm going to give an example, and I'm not going to be popular.
We've only got 1 minute, so if you want to make it super quick.
Okay. Distinguishing myself from my opponents. I don't need to be adversarial. That's clear. I want to help people understand where I'm coming from. I'm going to be a transparent guy. I'm going to do my best to work with other commissioners. It's obviously been an issue in the past. Things are really complicated, and I can't promise anybody anything for 100% sure that I can get it done. But I'm going to do my best to get the job done for the citizens of Millville. And I didn't mention it earlier, but I'm also an Eagle Scout, and some of the tenets of what I was learned and taught by people when I was growing up, and I had success, and I was proud of being an Eagle Scout and other things. That kept me out of trouble, and here I am.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much, sir. Again, everybody, this is Tom McGinty. He's running for Millville City Commissioner's race in November against a whole lot of other people. This has been Inform the Vote Radio Hour here on Cruisin' 92.1 WVLT in Vineland. Tune in next week, and I believe Commissioner Suey will be on. So,
thank you very much, neighbors and friends. I really appreciate it, and I will appreciate your backing and your support and your vote. Please get out there and vote this year. We really need you.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. See you next week.
Want to know the secret to what makes Rita's water ice so delicious? Did you know that Rita makes their ice fresh every day with real fruit at each store? It's that combo of real fruit and